We just talked about ending the Fed. Is that the big plan, to get rid of the Federal Reserve? What's going to happen to gold? What's going to happen to the U.S. dollar? We are at a pivotal moment right now in the United States monetary policy and the future of this country. We wanted to bring in CEO of Lear Capital, our friend of the show, Kevin DeMeritt, who is a gold expert who watches these markets very closely. Love to have him on every few months to get an update on where things stand. And boy, do we have a big update to get into today. Kevin, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Clayton.
Wow, what an unbelievable moment we are in. So, of course, you're watching all of this unfold right now. And as we just talked about here, ending the Fed, and, there's a big movement, it seems like, to embrace Congressman Ron Paul's plan to finally get rid of this unelected group of monetary policymakers that the United States voters have no say in, ending the Fed. So what do you make of that, first of all, and what do you think it'll mean for gold prices, for the U.S. dollar, going forward over the next few years?
Yeah, there's a lot to that. So it's not a simple thing just to get rid of the Fed. But if you think about it, is it the right thing to do? Sure. The right things to do are sometimes the hardest things to do. But when you look at the U.S. economy and the government spending and debt, we're drowning in $37 trillion in debt. You have $1.1 trillion in borrowing just for interest. We have to borrow $2.7 billion a day just to pay, the interest. It's unsustainable, as Elon Musk has said. A lot of countries have already been selling dollars and buying gold with the BRICS currency because they understand that the U.S. dollar and the U.S. economy is kind of at a tipping point here. There's just too much debt. We have to continue to print to keep up just with the interest rates. So central banks around the world are holding the smallest dollar reserves in their central banks since 1999. This trend has already started where a lot of global de-dollarization is starting. And I think potentially the best thing to do is get rid of the Fed, get back on the gold standard, as Ron Paul has talked about. It would skyrocket gold, but it's the best thing you can do for the dollar. It'll strengthen the U.S. dollar and hold it as the world's reserve currency.
You talk about the pain points, and I think that's a very, very important. Life, when you go through life, right, life is all about discomfort. We only grow through discomfort. And these globalists have destroyed the U.S. economy in a way by driving down the value of the U.S. dollar. We're $36 trillion in debt right now. So there's going to be some pain when you end the Fed and you start to rein in spending. So where do you think we're going to see some pain points? And I think Americans should probably be aware of this, right? If you're going to make this drastic shift in policy, there's going to be some pain. Where do you expect to see some pain points?
Well, I think some of the pain points are going to come. Look, you have this BRICS currency that we've spoken about a couple of times on this program. And if you're going to end the Fed, what those countries are going to say, especially China, Russia, and India, we've already been going in this direction. We've already been backing a currency by gold. This is the way you should go, right? So now you've got some competition. I think that's going to be the most pain. Citibank came out and said, look, buy the dips in gold because of de-dollarization, global de-dollarization, and higher interest rates. So these countries out there are going to take advantage of this particular situation if we end the Fed. They'll probably take advantage of it because of the tariffs as well, and sell more treasuries. That's the trend that we've seen happen over the past 4 or 5 years. That's the value of the dollar has been going down. The value of the dollar is down 24% since 2020. And embrace, the BRICS currency. Everything the U.S. government is talking about now, we've already talked about. We have this kind of nailed down with the BRICS currency. And they've already got 30 countries, fairly substantial companies, kind of jumping on the bandwagon with the BRICS currency. So I just think you're going to get an acceleration of more countries having to make a decision. And if they make the decision that BRICS is more stable or it's got more support than the US dollar, then all of those dollars out in the world, Clayton, and there's more money, US dollars outside the United States because countries have had to accumulate to conduct trade with, that start to flood their way back into the US. Right? All that cash is going to come back into the U.S. and inflation goes through the roof. If you look at the 6 other world reserve currencies, when they lost that status, for 2 or 3 years, they had to deal with incredibly high inflation because all of that currency came back into their country. The definition of inflation is too much money chasing too few goods, and you get inflation. So you're starting to see people like Stan Druckenmiller, who says, look, interest rates are probably going to be higher. Inflation isn't going to, get down to the 2.1 that we believe it's going to, or the Fed that believes it's going to end up at, because potentially these dollars are going to come back into the United States. Exactly what Citigroup says here. So there's a lot of things that happen that are the consequence of ending the Federal Reserve. Again, is it the right thing to do? Sure, they've put us into this horrible situation, so let's get rid of them and come up with a better situation. But the consequences of doing that is the hard thing on the other side that will have consequences here in the United States for investors and your financial well-being. So
gold prices, you said Citigroup came out with this buy the dip right now. Gold down just a little bit right now. But historically, where Trump has been elected, what has happened? So we're seeing this little dip right now. Citigroup says, yeah, buy the dip because it's going to skyrocket. Bank of America, I think, has like a price target for gold, like over $3,000 an ounce. I think UBI Bank, I think, also has it over like $3,200 an ounce. So what has historically happened here when we see these sort of dip periods?
Yeah, so in this article, it's a great question. The last time Trump was elected, we saw about a 5.5%, 6% pullback in the gold price, and then when he got into office, from that point on, we saw a 54% increase in the gold price. I think you're going to see a substantially higher increase this time. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a 60 or 65% increase, because he's tackling things that people have not wanted to tackle before. If the Federal Reserve, tariffs, is it the right thing to do? Absolutely. Is there going to be some ramifications because of it? Absolutely. So that volatility is kind of what Citibank, Bank of America, UBS, a lot of those other banks are talking about with a higher price of gold. And other countries around the world have already been accumulating at record levels in preparation of a dollar or de-dollarization.
I mean, how difficult would this be, Kevin, to suddenly take the U.S. dollar, since we haven't had this since 1971, and put the U.S. dollar back on a gold standard to what, Congressman Dr. Ron Paul wants and what Elon Musk seems to be pushing for and what even J.D. Vance seems to be coming around on? How difficult would that be with $36 trillion in debt? Like, what would that look like in America? I can't wrap my head around. We're so used to debt. We're so used to printing fake money. The Fed just is used to printing money whenever they want. Now they'd be held accountable for it. It seems to me like the chickens would come home to roost in a big, big way.
Well, so two things would happen. First of all, I'm in the greatest industry in the world if this happens, because right. You can't back every dollar for dollar with gold like we had back in 1974. You'd have to back a portion of it. Same thing the BRICS countries are talking about. Some portion of the dollar would be backed by gold. Again, fantastic for gold. It doesn't matter if you are backing just a tenth of it or a smaller amount even. The gold price is going to go through the roof. The second thing that happens is, and people have to understand this, prior to 1974, every time you printed a dollar, you needed to back it by gold. That stopped the money printing from getting out of control. So going forward, after they backed it by gold, now you have a control that says, hey, look, I can only print money if I can purchase some physical asset that can't be printed and back some portion of it with it. Again, gold skyrockets, but at least it controls the spending, keeps the dollar strong, and makes America better. Again, some consequences because of it, but you get a stronger, predictable dollar.
Right. And, we as Americans are asked to watch our budget, not overspend, not go into credit card debt. And in many ways, it brings this all under control and I think drives inflation way, way down, where now you have dollars, not just an abundance of dollars chasing too few goods. And that's, I think, would transform the United States of America. But I think you're right. There will be some pain points in all of this. You guys just put out over at Lear a new silver shortage report. And I see the price of silver dropped also in this dip right now. Natalie and I are big, investors in silver. So what do you see happening to silver? And I'll get you out of here on that, Kevin.
To me, it's the most undervalued asset in the precious metals complex. I mean, you have the largest silver deficit in 20 years. It's trading at a discount of 40% from its all-time high. You've got data centers going up, more electronics, more electronic cars, more solar, and you can't keep up with the mining in the silver market right now. So I believe the silver should trade in the $45 to $49 range based on where we are right now. And with everything going on with gold.
Is it like around $30 right now?
Yep. Not $30.50. So it's got a long way to go. And there's an enormous amount of reasons. And not only in a report talking about silver, we also have the report talking about debt, the de-dollarization. We just put out a small a report on the tariffs and how that will affect the US dollar. So people should get educated right now. I know there's a lot of confusion about what the heck do these tariffs mean? What does this Fed Reserve situation mean? What happens to the debt? Elon Musk is talking about pulling $2 trillion out of spending. What does it all mean, and where can I invest? We give a little bit of an education on that. So if people give us a phone call, we'd love to be able to get those reports out. And again, always on your show, we give away the $250 to start and open an account. So anybody that calls in and requests the information will get the reports, all of those reports, and also the $250 to open an account.
Awesome. Well, we'll have a link in the show description for people and the phone number there as well for people to call. Yeah, I'm just curious. I said I'd get you out of here a second ago, Ken. I'm just curious about this silver situation right now because President Trump has specifically said we want to double the electrical capacity in the United States for AI and for all of this stuff. He's talked about it repeatedly. I've done multiple special reports on that story, and I don't think people are paying much attention to it. But America's electrical capacity is way, way, way too low, entirely inefficient. He said it multiple times while he was running for president that he wants to revolutionize America's electrical capacity to handle AI, all of this electrical computing in the United States to be able to compete with China. So where does silver fall into that? I mean, is that why you think we're going to see like a huge spike in silver prices?
100%. The solar industry is eating up so much silver that's the industry that's gobbling up all the silver. You can't keep up with just the solar demand alone. And every time they make solar more efficient, you need more silver. So Clayton, what's really happening in the silver market is a lot of times with gold, if you put gold into some sort of electronics, it's expensive enough where you can recycle it and get that gold back out. Well, what happens in solar is they turn silver into a paste, and then they put that paste on top of one of the panels, and that helps the solar. So there is no solar without silver. It turns it into paste. You can't recycle it unless silver was $270 or $280 an ounce or so. So that silver's just gone until it hits that number. The electric issues that we have can be solved by solar. You can't solve them with oil. You can't solve them with coal. It's very difficult to solve them with wind power. Matter of fact, he's talking about taking out wind power, in the oceans. So you're left with solar, which is becoming extremely efficient. And I believe the silver price just skyrockets because that's the product that I think is going to help electricity the most. And Elon Musk knows it as well. And so if you're talking about AI, by the way, all these data centers and batteries and cars and so on and so forth, they also use silver. So, you got a double whammy. If you want to increase all of the AI, you're going to increase silver, and then you have to, use the solar to increase the energy capacity to get that going.
Well, wonderful to have you on. And it's interesting to watch this little dip right now after he gets elected. So, I think we're in a really interesting time. That's why I wanted to have you on, because people to pay attention to what's really happening with the Fed, what's going on with these tariffs, what's happening with these precious metals prices as well. Kevin, great to see you. Thanks as always, my friend. Great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.